If Dune is about desert prophets and Foundation is about predicting the future, then Dawn is about history itself. War, politics, and the people who shape empires. This is where Yoshiki Tanaka's Legend of the Galactic Heroes begins, and it takes space opera in a completely different direction. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about Dawn by Yoshiki Tanaka, the very first book in the Legend of the Galactic Heroes series. This is a Japanese science fiction classic that first came out in the 1980s, but it only got translated into English fairly recently. For a lot of Western readers, it's still something new. It's almost like discovering a hidden gem. It did get an anime adaptation, so you might be familiar with it that way. I think that's how I heard about it to begin with. But anyway, what makes it stand out is the way it tells its story. Instead of focusing on one hero or a small crew, it feels like you're reading the chronicle of an entire galactic war. Honestly, it reads more like a history book about the future than a traditional sci-fi adventure. And that's something you'll either really enjoy or it might throw you off a bit. In this review, I'll give a quick background of the story, talk about the writing style, dig into the characters and themes, and I share what I think works and what might not work, before wrapping up with my final thoughts. And of course, no spoilers like always. So, what's going on in Dawn? The galaxy is split between two giant powers. On one side you've got the Galactic Empire, a monarchy that feels straight out of European history. It's powerful, wealthy, but also corrupt and weighed down by aristocrats clinging to their old privileges. And on the other side there's the Free Planets Alliance, a democracy built on liberty and equality. At least in theory. It's bogged down by bureaucracy, selfless politicians, and its own kind of corruption. These two sides have been at war for over a century, and when the story starts, both are desperate for victories and new leaders who can actually change things. And that's where we meet the two figures at the heart of this series. First there is Reinhard von Lohengram, a young, ambitious admiral in the Empire. He is charismatic, ruthless and determined to rise to the top. And on the other side there's young Wen-li. He is opposite in many ways. A reluctant soldier in the Alliance who's rather is studying history than fighting wars, but who also happens to be a tactical genius. And the rivalry doesn't really fully take center in this first book, but Dawn is all about setting the stage for it. And you can already feel history shifting around these two characters. The first thing you'll notice is the way Dawn is written. Instead of immersing you deep inside the characters' heads, the story is told more like a chronicle. It's almost like the narrator is a historian looking back at these events and explaining how wars and politics shaped the galaxy. Sometimes the book zooms in on key moments with characters, but it always pulls back out to show you the bigger picture. That bird's eye view makes it feel weighty, You're like reading the official record of a real conflict. The prose itself is clean and easy to follow. The translation doesn't overload you with technical jargon or complicated world building. Instead, it focuses on clarity and keeps the attention on ideas, strategies, and the choices people make. But I should point this out. There's a real distance between you and the characters. You're not always experiencing their emotions up close. You're often just observing them. And for some readers, that's fascinating. But for others, especially if you prefer very character-driven, emotional writing, it might feel a bit detached. Let's talk about the characters and the ideas behind them. On one hand, Reinhard from Lohengrin, he's the ambitious reformer, brilliant, impatient, and completely unwilling to accept the old grip on power. He's bold and sometimes reckless, but he's the kind of person who wants to reshape the world around him. He's a perfect example of the great man of history. The idea that one individual's will can change the course of nations. On the other hand, young Wen-li. He is the reluctant hero. Someone who doesn't really want to fight, but who's too smart to be ignored. Yang is interesting because he's not naive. He knows democracy can be corrupt and inefficient, but he still believes it's the best system humanity has. He doesn't push for power. He just happens to be the person you want in charge when things go wrong. And through these two, Tanaka raises some big questions. Does history depend on a few brilliant individuals or on the systems and societies they live in? And is monarchy always worse than democracy? Or do both have weaknesses that humans can't escape? And how much of history is just chance? A lucky break, bad timing, or one decision on the battlefield? And I think this is why Dawn is more than just spaceships and battles. It's about politics, philosophy, and how history really works. So what stood out to me the most? First, there's the scale. You don't just follow a handful of characters on an adventure. You see the sweep of history across empires. It's massive, but it's still approachable. Second, the balance. The book never forgets the big ideas, but it also doesn't drown you in lectures. The battles are exciting and probably the best part of the book, but they're also meaningful because they connect to the bigger themes. And third, the translation. Even though the novel came out in the 80s, the English version feels smooth and modern. It's very easy to read, but there are also a couple of things to keep in mind. That narrative distance I mentioned earlier, you're not always close to the characters. If you need emotional depth and inner thoughts to connect, you might find this style a bit cold. If you've read Dune or Foundation, you'll notice a similar tone. But Tanaka isn't about predicting the far future or building incredible detailed worlds. He's showing you how history itself plays out on a galactic scale. Overall, I had a really good time with Dawn. It feels both classic and fresh. And classic because of its sweeping historical style, and fresh because I feel like hardly any modern sci-fi stories take this approach anymore. If you enjoy big picture science fiction, things like Foundation or the political side of Dune, I think you'll find a lot to appreciate here. If you're interested in how history and politics shape the rise and fall of empires, Dawn really delivers. That said, it's not for everyone. If you want a fast-paced, character-driven story packed with emotional drama, this one might feel a little slow or distant. But if you're willing to go along with its style, it's definitely a rewarding read and a fascinating opening chapter to a much larger saga. Personally, it left me really excited to keep going with the series and to see how Reinhardt and Young's rivalry develops across the later books. So, have you read Dawn or any of the other Legends of the Galactic Heroes series? Or maybe you've even seen the anime? Let me know what you think in the comments. And like always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.